All right, welcome back to the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through community. And every single week, we talk to a creative entrepreneur. And this week is like no other. We have the wonderful Ashley Inclima. Welcome.
Hello.
I need to get a clapper button, as I say every single week. So this week, I'm just going to give trigger warning. We are talking about miscarriage, child loss, bereavement. So for any of you that are watching, just know in advance that those are the kinds of conversations that we're going to have today. It'll probably get pretty emotional, as a lot of the conversations sometimes do, but this one, we know that it's going to go in that direction. So I just want to give y'all the warning in advance to either stay or choose to go. But either way, whoever's here, we're happy that you're here, especially you, Ashley. So welcome to the Let's Glow Show. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody your beautiful, lovely title, because I didn't want to botch it.
Yes. So my business name is Tides of Life Doula and Perinatal Bereavement Services. So I do birth doula work as well as bereavement doula work. And then I really have a strong focus in education and consulting about pregnancy loss for medical professionals, other doulas, businesses. Yeah, it's kind of my jam. Bereavement's my jam.
Yeah. Well, we always need like a safe space to ask questions and learn. And your entry into my life was like perfectly timed in that way. And if, for those of you that have been following along on our journey, you know that we've recently had a miscarriage. And I don't, when did we meet? I want to say it was like right after. It felt like it was like right after.
Yeah,
And I
it
was
was the
like,
start of April.
yeah, it was literally right after. So,
Mhm.
and we have a friend in common. And I was just like, this is weirdly perfectly timed. And then today is even weirdly perfectly timed because I was telling you yesterday, I have some weird icky feelings because my baby's due date is coming up September 10th. That was the anticipated due date. And so, like, lately, I've been having these weird feels, like just
Yeah.
weird feels. And at first, I was like, oh, it's the weather. Oh, it's the end of
Yeah.
summer. And then like yesterday I had like a moment where I'm like, no, wait, like there's some like deeper stuff there.
Yeah.
And so like this conversation is perfectly timed. So for those of us that know or don't know, how did you get into this work? I know you were in the medical profession before you
Yeah.
started this, but your story is kind of harrowing and you're
Mm.
taking a really strong lead with the work that you do. And I'm excited for you to tell everybody why.
Thank you. Thank you. Also talking about timing, that's a great segue into this too. So it all, my passion for this work stems from a personal place. Back in 2011, I was pregnant with my first child. And I worked as a medical assistant in an OBGYN office at that time. And in our second trimester, we discovered that our son had a fatal disorder, very, very rare fatal disorder. And so his loss date was actually just last week. So that's what I mean about the timing. This really talk
Yeah.
about timing for us here. But I was left at that time with having to make some decisions. We were told that with his disorder, he would either pass during pregnancy or during delivery or shortly after birth. The disorder that he had meant that his lungs would never mature. We were presented two options, right? Continue and wait or don't. And we chose not to wait. But because I worked for a Catholic hospital at that time, I couldn't use my doctor or my hospital that I was employed through, nor could I use my health insurance because it was through that hospital. And it led to a very, very traumatic situation. I think what I really took away as the biggest thing from that was how I felt like I was really failed in terms of having my options explained to me. Again, they said it's this or that without explaining what this would look like and what that would look like.
Right.
And it just was really baffling to me that wouldn't be explained, right? Like I had a personal relationship with my care providers, and I don't know that I would have made a different decision, but at minimum, I could have been prepared for what I would experience. And then, returning to work in an OBGYN around pregnant women was a nightmare. But, I've always been a really empathetic person. I always have cared about people. I always felt for families that I would see on my job that were experiencing loss. But after that personal experience, that empathy grew even more. And I started, noticing and hearing the same things from families, the lack of support that is out there, or access to that, being told what support resources there are. It was really one of the loneliest times in my life. I had to do my own research, try to find support groups. And, that's at the time when you're the least capable of
outreach. Yeah.
And I just, it just shouldn't be that way. I went on, I had an early miscarriage 3 months after losing my son. And, that was another added blow. I just, I don't know. I was forever changed by the loss of my 2 children, and just really, really found a passion for wanting to help as many other people as I can, advocate for them, help them find support they need, be support they need, and, just bring some awareness to a topic that is full of stigma.
Right.
Still.
That part on top of all of it, because it's crazy that you were in the medical profession and you still didn't know the direction to go. Like, so imagine someone who is just not used to being in the doctors and not used to talking to an authority like a doctor or a nurse, and how to navigate that, like, without that background of knowledge. So I can't even imagine the frustration that you were going through, knowing what the channels are.
Yes.
And still running into walls at every single corner.
Yep.
And the stigma around loss, about, like there's part of your story that you left out. And I have a strong feeling towards that. As many of my viewers know, my first child, I had an abortion. That was a choice. It wasn't a health choice for our child, but it was a life or death choice for me.
Yes.
And the future of my child.
Yes.
So at that time, it was either live with an abuser for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Or get out.
Yep.
If this person had found out, then it probably, who knows the direction that relationship would have went. I don't know that it would have been, I don't know if it would have been life-threatening or not, but at the time it felt like it would have been.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that part, like, having to make a choice, a life or death choice, and then walking into an abortion clinic.
Yep.
And getting the experience that happens outside and inside and inside and outside.
Yes.
It's so much. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's overwhelming. I watched your talk that you sent to me yesterday, which I'll include in the comments below, for people that want to know the full story, which you're a beautiful storyteller, by the way. Like,
thank you.
I was like listening and watching, and I'm like, this is a TED talk. This is like next level. This is like viral. Like, anyway, you did amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
But that whole, like, all of those pieces, and then having to just like be alone afterward, you know, and just like go back to work
Yeah.
because you can go back to work within 72 hours, like,
Yep.
but you shouldn't, you know,
Right.
there's all of this stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes.
There's so much more than just the loss
That's right.
itself,
That's
you
right.
know? So how did you navigate starting a business? Like
Hmm.
going from like extreme loss
Yeah.
into business ownership, like where did that happen? And how did
Yeah.
you navigate that spiritually? Like, how do you navigate that as like the human that has the human experiences that you do and
Yeah.
the empathy that you do? Like, how, tell me about
Yeah.
that journey.
Yeah, honestly, I think this has been a 13-year journey since losing my son. I really, man, Adrian, he just, again, he changed me. And I knew early on after that loss, I think that the pain I felt, the loneliness I felt, the experience that I went through making that choice to terminate, what I experienced at that clinic, I just, I've always believed that our story together was one that should be told and that there was good I should do from that. And, in the last 13 years, I spent more time working in OBGYN offices. I worked most recently at a local hospital as a labor and delivery technician and assisting in all deliveries, and then also as the perinatal loss coordinator there and working with families and actively experiencing stillbirth and neonatal loss and miscarriage. And I think that that job is what brought to the surface the deep knowing I've always had that I was meant to do something more with my story with my son. And, honestly, I had gone back to school. I completed my prerequisites for the nursing program.
Mm-hmm.
And my intention was to go to nursing school. I was accepted. But, I'm a divorced mom. I have my identical twin daughters now, my live-in babies, and
Your middle schoolers
my
now.
big middle schoolers, which is wild, which is so wild. But a 4-day a week nursing program is really not structured for a divorced mom who needs to work full time. So I was trying to figure out how can I make money and put myself through nursing school. And I came up with this business. I decided I think now is time to take the leap. I did my doula training. I love all things women's health, but especially pregnancy, birth, the loss that unfortunately can come with that. I'm just so passionate about it. And, doulas are becoming, way more known, way more utilized. I think it's amazing. And I just feel really excited to get into doing that work and having a little more control over, helping more people directly in this way. Trying to make a difference. And again, that's the education and consulting side for me is really huge, because as much as I love to help people, I'm just one person.
Right.
I can only help so many people myself. So, really it's educating as many birth workers and medical professionals as possible so that, more families can be served the way they deserve.
Yeah. I think when we were first chatting, our first coffee chat, I remember thinking like, how would I have even found you in the midst of what I was experiencing? Because you were mentioning you're like, you really could have used a loss doula. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, how do you function in a way where I'm like, I need a doula,
Right.
right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you know? And how do you educate people in advance, not with the hopes that something will happen,
Yeah.
but knowing that, what is it, 1 in 4 women experience pregnancy loss.
Yes.
Like, if then maybe when you hear your friend going through that, you'd be like, oh, I know someone, like call Ashley,
Yeah.
or she might know someone in your area anyway. So like, how, if I'm going through it, like, how do I even know what to do? Like, how would I find you or
Yeah.
find someone in my area? What do I search for?
Yeah. Really honestly, doula search. I mean, any doula is for sure,
Yeah.
capable of supporting someone. But I think, social media, social
Yeah.
media these days, right?
I have a question. Can you define what a doula is for those of us that don't act like the word is going around, but like you
Yeah.
just take an assumption
Yes.
knowing, at least that's what I do. I'm like, I think I know what a doula does. Like when I hear the word, I make like associations and I'm like, okay, I think that's what a doula does.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good point. Yes. I like to say essentially a doula is a birth coach, advocate. They provide emotional and physical support, but they don't do any medical treatment. Okay,
okay.
so they are not involved in any of that. But advocacy is huge. Education for the birthing person, and just working together in that way. You work with the doula throughout the pregnancy, come up with a birth plan, discuss again a lot of childbirth education stuff too, right?
That
And
would have been nice to know, like, the
yeah,
first pregnancy that I was planning to carry, like, I was
yeah,
reading all of this stuff, like, social media immediately, like, the second you research anything pregnancy, your Instagram turns mama, like, really, really fast, and
yeah,
so you get bombarded with a lot of stuff, like, "You need this, you need that, you need to buy all this stuff," and a lot of my friends in my social circle are either pregnant or
yes,
planning to get pregnant and it's interesting because I felt like the second I found out, like, everybody around me was pregnant, it was
yep.
like I literally had, like, 5 bump buddies at the
Oh
time.
my,
It was like nobody was
wow,
pregnant, now everybody's pregnant, and now I have you see it harder, I guess is
yes,
the way, but a lot of people in my social circle are getting pregnant, having babies, having their first or whatever the case may be, and
yes,
at the time like, when I was at the beginning, I was like, "I don't know what to do." Like, I don't know what to do. I
right,
changed my whole diet.
right,
I everything on like, when you search for diet, like, birth plan, like, it's all
yeah,
different. Depends on
yes,
just the Google link you click on. Like, it depends on the way you Google
yeah,
it, depends on the way you search it, depends on
right,
so knowing that now that you can get somebody to walk through, because 'cause I'm like, "My doctor didn't do anything." She poked me, she
yeah,
prodded me, she asked me, like, 5 questions, and she was out the door,
right,
and I was like, "Is it supposed to be more?" And I think what I needed was a doula at the
yes,
I
yes.
didn't know that.
Yes, right. Oh, I know. I'm so glad that doulas are becoming more known. We're getting more doulas entering the field because, that's the unfortunate reality of the healthcare system these days is, honestly, doctors, nurses, medical staff, they're understaffed, they're overworked. Their schedules are packed.
Right,
Even the best, most kind, caring doctors, they're under pressure to get through their schedule, right?
right,
Um,
right.
and I think that's where the doulas really fill the gap, helping answer questions maybe you couldn't have answered in that appointment, or help you come up with the questions maybe you need to ask next time.
Right.
Just, yeah, really going through all of the evidence-based practices out there, and again, yeah, and being able to
Yeah.
advocate for you.
That I felt was missing. I felt like I
Yeah,
was kind of like both during the pregnancy and after the loss, I felt like I was just floating in space.
yeah,
It was like planets of knowledge and
yeah,
information, like, shooting past me, but
yes,
it all felt, like, untouchable. Like, I was
yeah,
like, "Is that for me? I don't know if that's for me. Is that for me?
yes,
I don't know if that's for me." Like,
yeah,
and it's just so much,
yes,
especially when you're feeling this transition of pregnancy, and then you're transitioning out of pregnancy, like, immediately. It's
yeah.
a weird it's weird.
It is weird. It is weird, and because beyond the emotional aspect of all of that, that you've got all the hormones all the hormones going on, and
Yeah.
it's all of it's overwhelming. All of it's
Yeah.
overwhelming. It
Mm.
is. I know that's again, I think the doulas just, they're like your pregnancy buddy.
Right, right. Which it's like you didn't know you needed because your
Yeah.
mom's advice is nice, but
Yeah.
her advice is from probably like 30 years ago. So,
Right.
whatever. Love
Right.
mom, but also
But also,
that was in the 80s and 90s. Okay, mom, like,
yep, some
like
things have changed.
right, exactly, exactly. So, I'm curious from a more business lens, like what has this experience been like for you? Like being an entrepreneur
Yeah.
in such a sacred space.
Yeah. First word that comes to mind is challenging.
Right.
Challenging, very challenging. I mean, I definitely don't come from a business background. So I've had to do a lot of educating, a lot of
Mhm.
educating. You know, that on its own is been a lot. And then there's all these other aspects that I knew would be challenging too, but
Sure.
yeah, social media, using social
Admin
media,
work,
trying to
keep
be,
the books.
oh my gosh, it is just there's so much to it. And what I do is very niche. It's
Yeah,
very niche
and very personal.
and very personal and sensitive. Um, and I don't think that that's a bad thing.
No.
But it means having to get a little creative, I think.
Interesting. In what ways?
Um, that I feel sometimes, again, in regards to like social media, for example,
Mhm.
I can feel a little challenged in terms of what sort of content to put out. Like
Mhm.
I don't want it all to be heavy, I guess,
Right,
right? You
right,
know, but also you gotta be sensitive.
right. And and the people that are gonna be looking for you wanna know that you can handle it. Y
Yeah.
That is an interesting challenge because a lot of my suggestions to people that I know that are like, "I'm struggling with social media," would be to like, "Oh, base your like, some of your content off of the conversations that you're having." Like, for example, this is a great bouncing point for you, like, "Oh, I was on the Let's Glow show today, and this
Yes.
sparked this idea, and I was talking to Ashley today, and this sparked this idea," and I like to kind of let life lead in a way,
Yes.
but I can see how that can be really hard because, like, some of these conversations are, like, probably confidential.
Yep.
That's part of it, you
That's a
know?
good part. Yep.
And then also, like, do you have to I'm wondering from, like, just a personal lens, do you have to live in this space all the time where you're constantly talking about loss?
I get that question quite a bit. The sort of like, oh, isn't that really hard to be in that space? And, you know, for me personally, it's not.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I think I just live in this space anyway.
Yeah.
I carry Adrian with me all the time. Um, and I'm just sort of a naturally deep person.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I think that just because of my personal journey, I've learned how to separate out the grief.
Yeah.
I can kind of tune in when I want or need, and I'm
Mm,
pretty good about tuning it out.
yeah.
Um, and really, now that I am doing this as a business, um, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't feel that challenging.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
just so
superpower.
rewarding that
Yeah.
no, it brings me joy.
That's
Oh, it's
good.
not
I
weird
mean,
to say.
but that's it's not though, because if you're the kind of person that is uncomfortable by loss, then it doesn't make sense to be a loss doula. But
Yeah,
since you're comfortable talking about it and living in the space and having the conversations and going into the depth of what that means for people, like I can understand why it's the right career choice for you
yeah,
because like why would you if you're not capable of doing it and guiding people in a direction of light from a
right.
place of darkness, like Why would you do it?
Yeah.
Like it
Right.
makes sense. It makes
Yes.
sense. So like, this is going to be a really weird question, but like, how do you then be like, okay, so your bill is going to be like after, like after you're having this like deep conversation and you're
Yeah.
helping guide these people and they're like, okay, and now
Yeah.
you owe me, like,
Yeah.
give me your money, like I
Yes.
already struggle with that. And I'm not working in that sensitive of a space, but in my opinion, I'm like, oh, when you're building your communities and launching your programs, that feels very
Yeah.
sensitive. And I also feel weird about asking for money. So
Yes.
I just want to ask this question because it's such a,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because business owner to business owner, I still struggle with it. So how do you
Uh,
manage that?
that would be the other very large challenge. It it doesn't feel good to charge people in, acute, deep grief, right? Um, I've really tried to structure my business so that I provide support services in the first 2 weeks following a loss free of charge.
Mm.
I try to rely on donations and crowdfunding, which again is also challenging.
Because it
Um,
requires marketing and social media.
that's exactly it. So that's kind of where that ties in, right? Is I have this crowd fundraiser going on, and it's really hard to get it out there to get the funds in, but that's what I want to do. I want to be able to those first 2 weeks following any type of major grief, right?
Right.
You don't really know what you need. You don't know
Right.
what's up from down, left from right, and I know that I don't think that I would have paid for any sort of support in that immediate time.
Right.
In hindsight, 1000%.
Right.
But you
In it.
when you're in it,
Right.
and I recognize that. And so, that's why I tried to do those, I do those 2 weeks immediately following free of charge, because you just families don't need that added burden. They don't need that added thought, and what they need is support. And really that's my ultimate goal. So,
Mm.
business wise, that's where, that education and consulting piece is where I focus getting the money in.
That makes sense.
So that, again, that sort of support, can remain as free of charge as
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
for as long as I can manage. And then it's after those 2 weeks, then I charge for like ongoing
Yeah.
coaching, essentially. But by that point, you can kind of have that conversation.
Right. It's a little bit more comfortable, but that
Yeah.
makes sense that you're like going the corporate route so that you can feed the spiritual route. And I love that you're offering 2 weeks free. And I wonder, and I feel like this like feels like something I might have said to you before, but like you can tell these corporate companies, like every time you book with me, like you're supporting all of
Yes.
these women experiencing this for 2 weeks for free. And,
Yes.
and maybe you can quantify that, like
Right.
your booking supports 3 women or your
Right.
booking supports 5 women for 2 weeks for free. Like,
Right.
book me 6 times this year instead of just once, like,
Yes. Yes.
but that's the hard part is like, you need to eat too. Your
Right.
kids need to eat too.
Yep.
And you can't just give it away, even though
Yeah.
like, if we were not in a society that required money exchange, you would give
Yes.
it away,
Yes. Yes. Well, and that's, I think, just our society's view on grief in general actually is a big part of the overall problem.
Mm.
I completed a course by David Kessler this spring to become, I'm a certified grief educator.
Mhm.
And that training was incredible. I learned so much. And, he talked during that training about how he's received a lot of backlash himself
Mm.
in charging for the support group that he runs. And, people kind of attacking him, like, how can you charge people who are in grief? And it's like, well, therapists charge.
The doctor definitely sent me a big ass bill.
Right?
Like, and just to be 100% transparent, we didn't know that we were gonna basically get the bill of having a child
Yep.
when we were going through our loss. Like,
Okay.
it was pretty close to that price.
Yep.
And I like and it was not only was it immediate, but it was ongoing. It was like
Yes.
there was first a $3,000 bill, then a
Yeah.
$5,000 bill, then a
Yeah.
$2,000 bill. And you're seeing all this stuff, and the
Yes.
actual fees are like $20,000.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yep.
what? Like,
I know.
luckily we had insurance,
Right.
that paid for most of it. And luckily we both had full-time jobs.
Right.
And we had a house savings that we pulled out to pay
Yeah.
for that stuff,
Right.
but it was like,
Oh, I
they
know.
don't care.
No,
They
they
don't.
don't. No. And it's, that it's those things too, right? Like after loss that just, you open that bill and it's like it reopens the wound that maybe is healing a little bit, maybe,
Right.
right? And it just, yeah, it's like added insult to injury for sure. But I just, it is hard. It is hard to charge people in grief. And again, I think a big part of that is just because of the view, society's
Right.
view on that. And, it touches on just mental health in general, and
Mhm.
that isn't historically prioritized.
Right.
In our culture, it's not talked about. It's not prioritized. I think we, especially as women, tend to feel guilty if we are tending to ourselves. I don't know. I'm so glad there's a lot more conversation happening
Yeah.
in the community, medical community, especially about mental health. And, it's important. It's
It
important.
is.
It's
And
important.
the work that you're doing is required, because I feel like I recently went to a funeral, and it was a mother that lost a son. The son was in his 40s. She was in her 70s, but she
Yeah.
rented a gala space, not a gala space, but like a banquet hall,
Yeah.
had this huge, beautiful catering, the
Mhm.
arrangements, you know, at the funeral. She was the mother of the funeral. She was caring for everybody, that although she had just lost her child.
Right.
And um
Mhm.
she's telling everybody it'll be okay, the catering will be out soon. How is the food? Did I do a good job? Do you think that he would have liked this? Was this, and
Yeah.
she's serving us this whole funeral.
Yep.
And I've called her several times after, just to check in and just see how she's doing, because she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah.
She's dealing with the arrangements. It's different when you have, an adult person that has passed away, when this adult person also has children
Yeah.
and doesn't have a will. And these are some of the things that I feel like we need to talk about, because he was 43. My husband is 37, right?
Right.
We're not that far apart. And
Right.
we haven't figured out what we're going to do when we pass away. And seeing him not have all his shit together,
Yeah.
basically, now she's dealing with it. And she's
Right.
still dealing with it. This is weeks later now. And she's still well, I still need to go here. And I had a meeting at the funeral home. I had a meeting here and a meeting there. And I'm just wondering what her experience is going to be like after the meetings are done, when she
Right.
can actually participate in her grief. But
Right.
right now she's stuffing it down with stuff to do.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
that she has to buy, and the funeral arrangements, which is also ridiculously expensive. And I'm like, you didn't have to do all of this.
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
weird.
It sounds like, that's delayed grief. That's you have to just kind of putting it off,
Yeah.
right? She's probably experiencing a little bit of numbness. I'm sure there was shock involved.
Yeah.
It's that survival mode, right? And you're right. Eventually she will be confronted and have to face that pain. But, man, and even, her being in her 70s and her son in your 40s, it just touches on, the loss of a child, right? It's out of the natural order,
Right.
right? We're not supposed to outlive our children.
Right.
So, and, that's goes back down to the pregnancy loss too, right? It's the same. It's this out of order thing. And, it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It makes people uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to be, right? I feel for her. And it's hard to, death is scary, I feel
Yeah.
like, right?
But it's inevitable. Like
Exactly.
we all are going to experience it.
That's it.
And that's the other part of this is like you talked about stigma. And I remember thinking, like, when I was going through my experience, I remember getting told, like, don't say anything. Don't say anything until you know. Don't say anything until you know the pregnancy is viable, right? I'm like, but I'm pregnant right now. And I'm not going to walk around acting like I'm not pregnant and like I'm not about to throw up on you because I am. And it might be like physical or it might be hormonal. Okay. So like either way, be ready, but so I didn't want to go through my pregnancy in private and I didn't want to celebrate in private and I didn't want to be in pain in private. And then so I told everybody that I like ever walked up to, and Libri always teases me because he's like, you told us to keep it a secret, but you told everyone. I was like, it's my secret to tell. Okay. I'm allowed to tell my secret to everybody. You're not allowed to tell my secret to everybody. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's right.
But I literally told everybody. I announced it at a huge event that I host, partially because that event, the Clothing Swap Festival, requires a lot of physical labor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm usually in the trenches with everybody. And I was like, I need to just take it easy today. So I told my team, and then I was like, well, I might as well just tell everybody here and, announced it. And then it was like a month later that we experienced the loss. But I'm like, I literally just told everybody in my social network. And if I don't say that I lost the baby, now I'm going to have to explain to every individual person what happened.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a weird inkling, but I was like, I need to post something about this.
Yeah.
I need to share it. I need to put it out there. And it was like, it was interesting. It was kind of, for me, Libri was like, do you think this will make you feel better? If you think it'll make you feel better, then post it.
Yeah.
If you don't, then don't.
Yeah.
And I remember being off work and I decided I was like, I know what I'm going to say. I wrote it all out and I posted it. And for the next 8 hours, it felt like it was it felt like a funeral.
Yeah.
It felt like a funeral that I didn't, we didn't have a physical baby to have a funeral for, but people were reaching out. We were talking. People were sharing their experiences. There were people who have been carrying their child loss for 20 years and never told a soul.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
And that to me was shocking that you're carrying this, this memory of this child in secret, your whole life, and so it opened up a lot of these doors for conversations with men as well. Like men were sharing, they were like, my wife lost her child. It was really hard for me, blah, 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 sharing their experience. And I'm like, how come nobody's sharing this? How come nobody's talking about their experience?
Yes.
And it was an opportunity for everybody to just vent it out, which I thought was very beautiful.
That is.
And also people were walking up to me and saying I had a loss when I was in my 20s from 60, 70-year-olds.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the things that you hear most from people who do experience pregnancy loss, whether it be miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss, is as soon as you share, suddenly all these people in your circle start coming forward and sharing, and you had no idea. They had been through that. And that's how we used to view pregnancy loss. They used to take stillborn babies immediately out of the room and away from their mothers. They weren't given the chance to see them, hold them, anything like that. It was that taboo. So there's, we've come a long way. We got a long way to go. But I feel like that's that generational trauma stuff, right? It gets passed down and passed down, and it's just ingrained in us that, don't talk about it. And it's such a disservice to us, still here living with that loss, with that grief, and a disservice to the life of our children,
Yeah.
the opportunity for them to be known, their existence
Mhm.
to be known. It's so funny. There's always that advice given, right? When you say you're pregnant and don't tell until it's time. And
Don't jinx it.
yeah, I was that way with
Yeah.
Adrian. I
Yeah.
didn't hardly tell anybody until
Mhm.
12 weeks. And it was a few days after that initial testing came back, more, indicating there was likely a major problem.
Mhm.
Um, and, the advice I like to give people, because I get that question, should I tell? Should I keep it secret? And I always say, tell anybody that you would want to support you if unfortunately you did have a loss. What would
Right.
that support look like for you? Right?
Yeah.
Would you want your parents to know, your siblings to know, your closest friends, your community,
Yeah.
what tell anybody who you would want to support you and who you would
Right.
want to know about the existence of your child.
Yeah, like, I think had I done what my elders told me to do,
Yeah.
I would have gone through my whole pregnancy and my loss alone.
Yes.
Because I was literally one day, like, it was the day before my follow-up checkup.
Ah,
It was literally the next morning. So it was Wednesday, and my appointment was at 9 a.m. on Thursday.
mhm.
And it was like, "Can I just wait? Is this okay?" Like, what is
Yeah.
also, like, you don't know if you've never had a child before what to expect, right?
Right.
Um, but, like, all of that alone, like, I don't understand that. I told my parents right away. I
Yes.
told Labrie right away. We knew right away. We knew really, really early. I think we knew at, like, 3, maybe 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So, it was like I was like, "Well, y'all are gonna have to deal with me, so
Yeah.
you're gonna know, because I need extra cushy loving, I need extra
Yes.
support, I need you to treat me with kindness, I need you to know that I'm
Yes.
growing a human, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I need
And
that treatment.
yeah, and overall, you feel really happy with your decision to have shared, yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
share the loss.
I
And
think I think if I hadn't, my life would have gone a different route, but
yeah.
I think because I like you, I had a moment where I was like, I can hide and, like, withdraw into this,
Yes.
or I can use this as a tool
Yeah.
to to teach and to grow and to lean
Yes.
in, and I think, and I've said this before, like, when we were in the hospital, Labrie and I kind of looked at each other and we talked about our gratitudes, what we're grateful for. We talked about, like, what our mood was, where we were, like, what do we want to do next? How do we want to
Mm.
This is not the right word, but it's the only word that comes to mind. How can we leverage this experience?
Yes.
How can we leverage this experience to grow into the people that we want to become, right?
Yes.
And the the only option was to just be loud about it
Yep.
and use what I'm gifted at, which is connecting and talking and
Yes.
sharing, and
Right.
say it, like, you know? And I
Right.
think to your point, like, and I've been talking about my pregnancy loss for a long time. That's the other part. Like, I've been talking about my abortion
Yeah.
forever. And that was my form of therapy, by saying out loud to the public and to people that, like, "Hey, I got out of this situation and this is what I had to do it." And
Right.
that abortion was the best decision I had ever made in my entire life. It was the first time I ever chose my life as a
Yeah.
priority, right? So,
Big.
being that person that's on this narrative, like, why would I not share
Yeah.
this part
Yeah.
either?
Well, it's the making meaning, right? It's the making meaning from it, from your experience. Like you said, leverage. I think that's what you mean is making
Yeah,
meaning, taking your pain and turning it into something good, something else, integrating it into your life in a way that feels meaningful for you and honors you and your child. And I mean, seriously, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful the way that you shared and were open like that. And I love that you got such wonderful responses. And
yeah,
that's what it's about, community and supporting one another. And honoring ourselves, honoring our babies.
What advice do you have for people out there who are not as outwardly sharing as we are, in their experience,
Yeah.
whether they're like recently gone through it or maybe they've gone through it years and years and years ago? Like, what
Yeah.
advice do you have for those of us?
Definitely know you're not alone.
Mhm.
Know also that it's okay if you don't want to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think I think we can harbor guilt about that too. Some of us just can't go there.
Right.
It doesn't feel good to be in that space, and that's also okay. And definitely finding ways to honor your baby that feel good for you.
Mhm.
There's lots of little ways that you can do that. Doesn't have to be talking and sharing. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's a good thing. Again, it opens the opportunity for connection and feeling a little less alone. But if that isn't something you want to do, you can, plant a tree, plant a rose bush. I make a cake for Adrian on his due date. Um,
Mm.
and that feels meaningful for me. There's other ways that you can find to honor your baby and hold them close, and I think it's the
I
best way.
like that. I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna steal that
Yeah.
because, this will be the it's interesting because I realized that the due date was coming up because it's big and bold on my calendar over there, but
Yeah.
I haven't turned
Flip
it
it.
to that month yet.
Yeah.
Like, September, and I realized that on that date, like, so much is happening. Like, I'm hosting a conference at work, and my husband's gonna be on a work trip, and and after watching your video yesterday and chatting with you, I had mentioned it. I was like, "Hey, like, our baby's due date's coming up." And we realized it was on a really busy day, but I feel like we have to do something,
Yeah.
just to, like,
Yeah.
acknowledge our baby. And you said something in your video too where you named your baby, and we had a nickname for our baby that we joked about, and we were like, one day we're going to name our baby Skills, like Skills Sweet Jones. And I was like, that's like a DJ name. We can't name our child that. But the whole pregnancy we were calling our baby Young Skills, right? And so there's like this, like, it's interesting because I have all these thoughts about it, about that experience, about the name, about the
Yes.
baby, about our child. And
Yes.
I had this weird thought recently. It was like, we birthed our baby and we birthed our skills because
Yeah.
interestingly enough, like after all of that, like all of this abundant stuff started happening for Labrie and I when we got in alignment. We're like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna be like full-time entrepreneurs and artists, and we're
Yeah.
entering into transition, and it's going really well.
Yeah.
Like, it's going really well. And there's like nods all the time where we're like, those skills. It's the skills. It's Young Skills. It's our baby. It was
Yes.
our baby that was the birth experience that we had. And now we're like in this space that would have been so different if we would have actually had
Yeah.
a child, but this is the experience that we're having, and we're like doing our craft every day, and now we're getting paid for it. Like,
Yes. It's amazing.
it's a weird. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make sense of all of it, right? I'm
Yeah.
trying to put meaning to things and like
Yes.
make it make sense in my brain. And so some of those are some of the weird. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just
it's the like integrating your old life with your new life, and embracing how it looks now. Like you said, it would have looked so different,
yeah.
right? If baby skills made it
Exactly.
to
Or
outside
we
your body.
never got pregnant. I think it would have been we're different humans,
Yeah. Yes.
you know?
And I the biggest thing I tell people is to give yourself grace in all of the ways, right? Like, allow yourself to celebrate how well your life is going and that you are living, you know, passionately, and it everything is going so well. Feel that and celebrate that. Don't feel guilty that it's really this way only because baby skills isn't here.
Yeah, that's a big one because I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people close to me, like my parents or my family, are like, "Are you done being sad? Like, are you really done being sad? Are you delaying grief?" Right? I'm like, "Well, I definitely felt the grief.
Right.
There we went through that. That was
Right.
and I've done all of the tools and the things that I knew to process that grief, and the
Yeah.
grief always exists. It's always
That's
there.
right. That's
But
right.
I do sometimes feel like, should I not be so excited that my life is going well and that dreams are coming true?
Right.
And they're only happening because my life took this turn,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's
Right.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's a supernatural response and thing to, feel. And again, that's why I just, you know, to give yourself grace. It's okay to be happy with how things are. And it doesn't mean you aren't sad
Yeah.
about what happened, but this is the reality,
Yeah.
right? Unfortunately. But also fortunately for the amazing things you have going on. And it doesn't have to be associated to what you've
Right.
lost. And I think you can find some ways to really honor your baby in a way that's going to feel good for you. And again, allow yourself to celebrate how your life looks now, of course. And because we can't do the what ifs, right? Maybe everything would have gone this way as well had you remained pregnant.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what ifs aren't helpful. They don't suit us, How do you feel about being so busy on that day going into it? What's your initial reaction as you realize that?
Part of it makes sense. Part of it's like, okay, I get that. I see that. Part of it is outside of me where it's like, work forces, like his work is sending him on a business trip and my work is hosting a conference that got pushed out. It got pushed out 3 weeks. That wasn't the original date. And now it just so happens to start on that day, and it wasn't the original plan. And I feel like I just looked up long enough to notice and be like, oh shit, that's on our baby's due date,
Yeah.
And I didn't erase it off the calendar. I didn't take it down.
Yeah.
We still have, baby skills up on the fridge and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yes.
It was always something that I wanted to celebrate, but I didn't know how. But I think this conversation is like, we need to have a birthday party.
Yeah.
Whatever maybe it's not a birthday party, like
a
celebration of life, a celebration of existence party,
Yes.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel like we have to celebrate it somehow.
Yep. Yeah. It's always felt really good to me, to celebrate him. I think that's, what's hard is you feel like you are the only ones really genuinely grieving, right? It's different when others don't know the person you're grieving, right? So yeah, I have always found that to feel really good. Celebrate when he should have been born. And I've always done that. My girls have grown up always experiencing that, always knowing about their big brother. And then that was special too, having them included, in that celebration.
How do you communicate that with your children, like as young children or even as like preteens? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there. I didn't find out that like my dad had a previous partner when he was younger that found out she was pregnant. And this was before that, this was like, they weren't ready to commit. And I didn't find out about that child until I was pregnant with my first child. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's but that was when I found out. And then we just never talked about it again,
Right.
like, oh, that was a passing fleeting conversation. Like, bring that up again. But like, how do you communicate with your children? And like, is that something that you suggest and recommend?
Yeah, that is definitely a super personal decision. I've known many families that do not tell their other children. They don't talk about it. For me, it's always felt really wonderful. I don't think there was ever like a certain point that I like sat them down and told them.
Right.
I think that they were always exposed. Like I had, my little shadow box with my mementos and, little his ultrasound pictures and stuff that's out. And, little necklaces that have his name on it. And, I've been on the board of a local nonprofit called Angel Kisses since the girls were just 6 months old. So we fundraise and donate to local bereavement programs. And so they've been coming to those fundraisers since they were born. And I think it just has kind of always existed. And, when they were really little, I just said, yeah, before you were born, you had a big brother and he was sick and he didn't get to be born and live with us. And, over time, their understanding of what that means has changed, and we'll kind of touch base on it. And, I'll explain it in a different way with, a little more details as they've aged. And, we've recently had the conversation of how he was lost. Right.
And
that's a whole separate part, right? And Roe versus Wade getting overturned. That was a real hard day. That was a hard day. I was a bit of a mess, to be honest. And there's a lot of protests going on. It's all over the news, and I didn't want to shy away from that. No. They were at the age that they're noticing, and so I explained to them what abortion means and what that meant for me in our life and in our scenario. And, and I took the opportunity to relate it to last year, our cat of 15 years died. We made the appointment to go and put him down. And, I connected that in there too, right? Sometimes you have, quality of life choices. Right. Trying to keep the stigma and taboo a little toned down for them as they enter this age of processing and understanding those things. So over time it's shifted. But it's always been lovely to talk about their brother with them. And they used to reference him when they were little, and just kind of understanding what having a sibling meant. They used to tell me they missed their brother. Which is just like the sweetest thing in the world. They're all my children, sometimes it's heavy to recognize I have 4 children, but only 2 are here. And so those moments really, I don't know, just kind of bring them all together for me, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, they're so sweet. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I do have to know, like, how has that, like, the overturning of Roe v. Wade impacted you as a doula worker?
I'm grateful we live in the state of Michigan. I am really grateful we live in Michigan. I become furiously angry when I hear about the things happening in other states. The limits that are being put on medications. That doesn't just impact women having abortions. That impacts all sorts of pregnant, birthing people. Their health. These medicines are important, and removing them can be life or death. And I've heard fear from clients of mine. Fear, shame, guilt, all of those things. The narrative is just, it's nasty. And it's impacted so many. And that's the feedback I receive from everyone. And it's hard. It's hard because I feel it too, right? There's not a lot of consoling to be done, you know. It just it's Yeah. I mean, it's impacting doctors, the decisions that they make. I've seen that in the hospital setting. I mean, it's yeah, it's not good.
No.
That was a sad day.
Yeah, I feel like that's a whole nother episode.
Yes,
Like,
that
oh
is.
my goodness, it's just.
I know.
Well, we're
Sweet.
already in an hour, so let's bring it back home. What advice do you have for people watching, whether they're interested in doula work or experiencing pregnancy or pregnancy loss? Like, what is your last bit of feedback that you want to share with everybody?
It would be you deserve support. You deserve support. If you feel called to birth work, do it. Do it. We need more. If you are pregnant, get yourself a doula. If you are experiencing loss, find support. It is out there. You know, support. You deserve it. You deserve it, whatever you're experiencing. And yeah, I think that's it, really. We deserve it.
That's beautiful. Oh,
we deserve it.
I don't know. It hit me. It hit me. Yeah. That's going to be the title of the show, by the way. You deserve support.
I love it.
That is like so real, because you can get in your head about like, well, you know, somebody told me, well, you were only 11 and a half weeks.
Oh yeah.
So you don't really need to, like, you can't even get into our program. Like, you know, or you were only, at least you weren't, you know, that at least you weren't, you know, 13 weeks. At least you weren't, you know.
At least you have other children.
At least you have a husband. At least you have a job. At least you can
get pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. You can try again. You get to do the fun part. Somebody said you get to do the fun part again. Oh, thank you. Anyway.
I know. That's anything that starts with at least should never be said.
Turn your brain off. Mute. Yes. But yeah, like, I don't think at the time I felt like I deserved it because I wasn't far enough along.
Yep. And you do. We all do.
Yeah.
We all do at every point, you know. We deserve support.
We deserve support. We deserve community. We deserve love. We deserve to be seen and to share.
Yes.
And so that's the other part, is like, share, tell everybody, like, don't keep it there's no reason to be transitioning into motherhood in secrecy. There's no reason to be transitioning out of motherhood in secrecy. There's no reason to go through anything in secrecy. And that, like you were saying, like, that is a generational trauma.
Yes.
Right? Yes. That is a generational trauma that we don't have to do anymore.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that you guys get from this, it's like, share your shit. Yes. With anybody that will listen, and that anybody that you're comfortable sharing it with. You don't have to tell the world like we're doing, and we're doing it because that's what we're called to do. But tell your friend, tell your boss, tell your parent, tell a stranger that you'll never see again, because you just need to get it out of your body.
Yeah. And you never know whose life you're going to touch, whose life you might change, and how that door opening might bring someone into your life that might change yours, right? 100%. That human connection.
This moving in silence, moving in secrecy, moving in private, moving in like all of that stuff, everything surrounding that, whether it's like pregnancy, loss, success, failure, business stuff. Like, a lot of people talk like this in business. Don't talk about it until it's done. Don't talk, you know.
Yeah.
We're going to cut that shit out.
Yes.
Like, no more of that. We don't have to suffer and succeed in silence. Like,
we shouldn't.
We should not.
No.
We should not. So that's I'm standing on that today. Like, share,
connect, support, celebrate. Yes.
Celebrate. Ashley, I'm so grateful for you in so many more ways than one. I'm so thankful that you're here today. I'm so thankful that we met. I'm so thankful that our paths crossed at the timing that it did. Like,
that wasn't an accident.
I know it.
It wasn't an accident. Baby skills. I gotta say, I love that, and I'm gonna be thinking about your baby skills.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And when was your baby's due? When was Adrian's due date?
His due date was February 6th. His lost date was August 20th. So
Think about you.
yeah. Thank you so much. You're such a lovely human. You're just
How are
amazing.
you?
I'm so happy to know you. I'm so happy to know you. Thank
Tell
you.
everybody how, of course, tell everybody how they can know you. Where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, got a website, good old Google.
Yeah. Tell us all the links.
Oh boy.
Or what they can search.
Yeah. tidesoflifedoula.com is my website. Instagram at tidesoflifedoula. I believe that's also for Facebook. LinkedIn, I'm on there too. So I'm around. Yes. Come
Slide
find
into those
me.
DMs,
Let's
y'all.
connect.
Yeah, just be in her presence. You guys should hit her up because you have a beautiful aura, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love you, girlfriend.
Love you too. And we love all of you. Thank you guys for coming on this ride with us. We know it was an emotional one today. So give yourself grace today. Go throughout the day. Like just open up and feel it and participate in it. And, know that you are seen, loved, and supported. And just one quick announcement. The Clothing Swap Festival, the Revamp Clothing Swap Festival is just 9 days away. So not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, we're going to be at the Detroit Shipping Co. from 12 to 5. So if you're looking for a community to lean into, come hang out with us, clear out your closet. I know, since we're on the topic and we're talking about loss, a lot of people who experience loss will come to the clothing swaps and help purge their family's things. And it's one of those experiences that we don't really like market on social media, but it happens every time. It happens every single time. There's at least 2 to 3 people who are like, I'm bringing my grandma's house to your swap, or I'm bringing my so-and-so's items to the swap. And like, because we're talking about it, I just want to acknowledge that is a challenging thing to experience, to like clear out one of your loved ones' homes, and that we are a safe space that you can do that. And not only do that, but know that your clothes are going back to our peers and into the community and supporting people that do not have access to clothing. And also, if you just come and hang out, like, you'll make a friend. I guarantee you'll make a friend. So, that, interestingly enough, I've like never talked about the amount of people that I talk to at the clothing swaps who are processing the loss of someone.
That's amazing.
So throwing it out there. Yeah, there was a young lady once. The first time I ever heard about it, anybody like talked to me publicly about it, was when we were doing it in Texas, and a young lady found this beautiful dress. She just so happened to be a model. So she got this dress, she snagged it, she did this beautiful photo shoot. The photos got picked up and got put in a publication, right? So now these pictures are in this publication. This beautiful model. She tagged us, the Clothing Swap Festival, on Instagram, and another young lady saw it and she goes, "That's my aunt's dress." And like, we connected them, and she said she remembers when she was like scrolling through Instagram, they saw the picture. There was like this moment. She showed her family, all of her sisters, because they all cleared the closet out together, and they were looking at that dress, and none of them could fit in it. So they just brought it to the swap because they wanted to keep it. And they got to see like it have this life, I don't, so sweet, like one of those things. And it's like, it's such a, you don't think about how impactful it is to see someone wearing something like, I don't know why that's making me more emotional than the lost stuff, but like the baby stuff, but knowing that like we get to live again and we get to do it again. And like the cyclical nature of the clothing swaps is so much more than just like getting new clothes, clearing out your closet, but there is something bigger there. And it's just so sweet. And literally every single time somebody is experiencing that, and somebody is clearing out someone's home, and somebody has experienced loss, and somebody's going to get to see their family member stuff live again.
Yes.
You know, so it's very special, safe space in my heart, but you know, so in 2 weeks, in 9 days, the next Clothing Swap Festival. So you're all welcome. Please come, please hang out with us. And again, we'll see you every single Wednesday on the Let's Glow Show with another amazing creative entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate you so
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Bye.